Hello, and welcome to this ninth lecture of this online training module on Foundational Education Leadership for Early Childhood Care and Education. In this second week, we have already covered two lectures and we have discussed about curriculum and pedagogy in the foundational education stage. We have also gone through two assignments on design of curriculum at the foundational education stage and also selection of pedagogy at the foundational education stage. Now that we have done all that, we are familiar with the use of technology and non-use to a certain extent. Today, in this lecture, we will delve into this idea of technology use and non-use and delimiting to a little more detail, as well as we will also discuss about nurturing of other intelligences apart from the analytical and linguistic intelligences using technology and other kinds of tools and techniques apart from technology, and what has technology has to offer with regards to the various facets it offers, with regards to the various forms it takes and what all it can offer in the current context. So as we can find out that technology has a lot to offer in the current context, and how technology can be utilized to the fullest, that is what we have to understand. As teacher leaders, we have to understand that we are the designers of technology and technological use, and so we have to understand technology use from a design perspective. So all these things we will discuss in this lecture. So moving further, so first thing we need to clarify and understand that what are going to be our core guiding principles regarding technology use and non-use. So the first principle is that technology when used appropriately can be a tool for learning. So we have to understand that technology can be a tool for learning. So it is not always harmful. It can be a very useful tool for learning, but it has to be used in a very appropriate manner. So that is what has to be understood, the first thing. But the screen time of the children has to be reduced, that we will discuss a little later, that the screen time has to be kept to the minimal. The screen time of the adult who is dealing with the children, that is the teacher leader, can be a little higher, and but the children has to be kept to the minimal, and that is what has to be understood, and that is how technology can act as a mediator and the teacher leader can act as a mediator between the technology and the child. So that is how technology has to be understood. It has to be understood as a tool, and the teacher leader has to act as a mediator between the technology and the child or the student or the pupil. So that is how this technology has to be utilized. Secondly, technology should be used to increase access to learning opportunities for all children. So there are children who have less access to educational resources, to educational opportunities. So technology should be utilized to increase access to resources, to access to opportunities. So that is another thing that needs to be thought of. Another very important aspect is that technology may be used to strengthen relationship among parents, families, early educators. So education of young children is, as if you look at the Bronfenius cycle and the Bronfenius framework for education, you will understand that education of a child is because of his whole surrounding and the environment itself, and the environment consists of not only the parent or the educator, but plethora of other people, and they all influence the education of the child. So it is not only the controlled environment and the planned acquisition that influences the child's learning, but that lot of unplanned and unintended learning also happens. So that is why technology should be used as a mediator and to strengthen the relationship among parents, families, early educators, and young children, to ensure that the whole framework and the environment of the child's education is controlled for and is known by the early educator and the parent and the teacher leader who is taking primary care of the child and is educating the child. So that is to be understood. And the fourth and the most important principle is that technology is more effective for learning when adults and peers interact or co-view with young children. So technology becomes more important when adults and peers interact or co-view. So that is very, very important to understand that adults and peers have to be co-viewers and co-learners in the whole process. And adults, for that matter, becomes very, very important in this whole process, that they have to become co-learners. We have been emphasizing and re-emphasizing on the very fact that as teacher leaders, you have to take the role of a learner, not only a teacher. So you have to take the role of a learner and start learning in detail about every aspect and start cultivating habits and attitudes which you also might be lacking, because these are the habits and attitudes the child or the pupil or the student is going to learn from you, because they are going to look at you as the role model. For knowledge and skills, you can always point out to other role models in the various field in which the child shows his or her interest. But as far as the attitude and habits are concerned, the adult who is in touch with the children and is in contact with the children on a day-to-day basis is the one who is going to drive the habits and the attitude of the children. So you are going to play a very important and fundamental role in this regard. So you have to be a role model in that regard. So using of technology meaningfully and mitigating the dangers of excessive screen time. So you have to understand that excessive screen time can lead to underdevelopment of children's mind, body, both mind as well as body. So mind, because the mind is not exercising, it is only getting information and it is not exercising and processing information at the same pace, and it is not interacting with information. And the body, because the body is not doing physical work, so the body is not growing. So the mind body, if it has to grow, the screen time has to get reduced, and lot of other activities has to come in play. So that is why you have to mitigate the dangers of excessive screen time by ensuring that technology is used meaningfully and it is used in a limited manner. And that is why adults have to be a mediator between the technology use and the student pupil and children's learning, and that is how it has to be there. So the adult can act as a bridge between child's learning and the technology, how it has to be utilized, what has to be learned. So the adult can learn and then pass it on to the children, or if they are learning together, then also it needs to be processed and played and replayed, and the whole activity needs to be acted on. So it should not be that something is played and it's left to the child to uh, act. So a adult is always required along with the child for the child to adequately grow and meaningfully grow, so that he is able to be a well grown and fully grown child in terms of his physical and mental growth. So that needs to be ensured by the educational leaders and teacher leaders like you. Coming to the educational technology and its design space. So if you look at this model, the instructional design model, that is how to educate, then learning, and the learning model is the first thing, that is the learning theory, learning level, learning type, effect and motivation. The educational theory, pedagogical strategies, educational theory and educational design theory, that is the pedagogy is the second thing. So how children learn is the first thing, their learning mode, etc. The pedagogy is the second thing. Then comes the role of technology, that is educational technology are nothing but tools and methods, and they should be treated nothing more than tools and methods, that is educational tools and technologies. They are cognitive tools, they are technologies, instructional design methods, so they are nothing but tools and methods, and they create objectives and constraints. They create both objectives and constraints, and they facilitate instructional design models. And finally, pedagogical design can be by use of technology and by non-use of technology by other equipments and tools and techniques. So there should be an appropriate balance between technological equipments and non-technological equipments, because finally, why are we mediating it with technology? Because certain things are not available at a cheap cost or at a reasonable cost. So what you do, you are using simulations to simulate it and then make it available. But the whole idea is why you are educating the child, so that he or she can act in the real world. So that is why exposure to the real world as far as possible is also important and desirable. So for things which is not possible in the real world, say for example, if you cannot take a child who is sitting in India to a to the Antarctica or to Africa, then watching a documentary on Africa or Antarctica is worthwhile. But that doesn't mean if he is sitting in Gujarat and he can go to Rajasthan, he should not be taken to the Thar Desert. He must be taken to the Thar Desert, because immersing him into a desert and the flora and fauna of the desert is a one time experience, and that experience is going to live with him. So watching a documentary is one level. So we have already learned from the Chinese proverb that the whole idea of learning has several levels, that I um, uh, hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I learn. So that is how, or I remember. So that is how you have to understand learning as well. So according to the possibilities, immersion in the real world is very much desirable, but if it is not possible, then it should be mediated through technology. So that is the whole suggestion regarding the use of educational technology and its design space. Coming to the whole idea of educational technology and its design perspective. So if you look at this whole idea of learners reshaping learning landscapes, new directions from old challenges, this whole idea taken from Owen 2008, he talks about how to connect pedagogical philosophy to pedagogical approach, pedagogical strategy, and these are the, he talks about all the kinds of technological uh, things that can be utilized. So right from recording and processing information to support, review, and mentor peers to reflect, to collect and collaborate individually, to active learning, to achieve learning outcomes, to access experts around the world, locate simulations, articles, diagrams, tools, etc. around the world, share thoughts, ideas, and resources, access educators outside face-to-face forums, record process information over time, detect audios and videos. So there are a lot of opportunities available. So there are blogs and wikis, discussion forums, Skypes and video chats, virtual worlds, social RSS and social softwares, e-ports, mobiles and phones, LMS, laptops, wireless, simulations, interactive games, podcasts, etc. So lot of opportunities for learning. So these are all modalities of learning, and these are all facilitators in the whole learning process. So if you look at these modalities, these are all going to facilitate the learning process. So say for example, new technologies like AR and VR, that is augmented reality and virtual reality, also makes available the actual uh, space, and how it looks like in the real world. So that kind of a space uh, brings the space or the industry to your own classroom, rather than you going to the industry, which might not be possible every time. So those kind of things are possible. The geographical locations are brought to your own classroom or the home environment. So that is how it must be looked at, and there are opportunities for learning and immersing into that. But there are the harms to it in terms of physical and mental. So if you get too much immersed into it, and if you are spending too much time every day, so you need to ensure that you are balancing it every day and you are not immersing it into too much. So immersing yourself it into too much is not desirable, but every day for half an hour is not a bad idea. So that is what a balance needs to be created in this regard, and that is what needs to be thought of. So if that is done, then technology can use to be a very useful tool for learning, and it can be a very important facilitator for learning. So if you look at the three major forms of pedagogies and associated technologies, this is adapted from the following author, then you will understand how to look at teaching. So if the dominant strategy is transfer teaching, then factual knowledge or know that is the important knowledge type. Then aims of teaching is transfer of propositional knowledge. Learning goal is to know or to remember. Assessment is production of correct answers. Learning content type is verbal knowledge or memorization. Teaching and learning strategy and activities is to teach and to explain. And the preferred technologies then become e-instruction using learning management systems or learning content management systems. Also referred to as web-based training, multimedia presentations, computer-based training, etc. So this is one way of transferring knowledge itself. So there is no discussion forum, there is no opportunity for peer learning. So that kind of a transfer teaching is passing out of passing on of factual knowledge. So that is the level 1 of knowledge. Then the second level is tutoring. That is what you are trying to do is the knowledge type is procedural knowledge or know-how or problem solving or concepts. Then aims of teaching is presentation of predetermined problems to do, to practice, to argue. Selection of correct methods and its use. That assessment type is that. The learning content type is skill and ability, teaching and learning strategies and activity to observe, to help and to demonstrate. Preferred technologies is computer-based learning simulations, microworlds, intelligent tutoring systems, e-tutoring combined with e-instruction using LMS, computer supportive collaborative learning systems, e-moderations, forums, weblogs, groups connecting, conferencing, and application sharing. So that is the second level. If you look at the current training program itself, So if you look at the current training program, there is an element of transfer teaching, because you want some kind of a knowledge of transfer teaching, what this whole what is this whole idea of teacher leadership at the foundational education stage, and what is this foundational education stage. But there are also assignments and assessments and opportunities for design that is given, and that helps you in engaging in procedural knowledge, and that is through designing of educational strategies at the at education in general, and also the foundational education in particular. And also there is design of pedagogy and curriculum, and you can design a lot of other things, and designing the whole blueprint as well. So that is the way for your own pupil. So that is the way you need to proceed in the whole state of affairs. So that is the application of procedural knowledge. And finally comes the social practice or knowledge in action. So where you start practicing your knowledge, and that will come only after the module is over, and there you will start practicing it in the real time, and start practicing with your children, group of children, or with one child, based upon what is your treatment group. And accordingly you will start experimenting the ideas that have been presented to you, and then designing it in a very detailed manner and customizing it. And that is where this whole idea of social practice will come into the whole process. And right now also you can engage into discussion forums, and engage in with the trainer in a lot of uh, engaging discussions. And then there is an opportunity for online interaction, wherein you can ask questions, and you can engage into the discussion forum, and that way you can very importantly discuss a lot of important ideas. So this is the way forward, and this is the knowledge type, and that is the idea dominant strategy of coaching. And the knowledge type of social practice or knowledge in action, aims of teaching is action in complex and social situations. Learning goal is to cope and to master. Assessment is realization of adequate action strategies. Learning content type is social responsibility. Teaching and learning strategies and activities are to cooperate and to support. And preferred technologies are e-coaching using collaborative content management systems, example portals and wikis, etc. Collaborative mobile technologies, cognitive tools such as knowledge forums and social software. So that is how you need to treat this whole training program as well. So it is a combination of all the three types of teaching, that is transfer teaching, tutoring and coaching. It is a combination of all the three, and any teaching for that matter is a combination of the all the three. And that is how it needs to be treated, and step by step it proceeds, right? So you need to take it in that perspective, and you need to learn and utilize this forum to proceed further. With that suggestion, let us move forward. And you must understand that you need to move to from teaching 1 to teaching 2 to teaching 3, and you must ensure that you must not only do teaching 1, but you must move to the other forms, other higher levels of teaching. If you look at some of the important educational technology, and a few tools and platforms useful at the foundational stage, I would like to start with quoting Arvind Gupta twice. So why so? Because for the development of analytical intelligences, Arvind Gupta Toys is a very important and useful platform, and it develops analytical intelligence in a very innovative way and in a very frugal way, because it talks about toys from trash. And Arvind Gupta is a pioneer in developing this whole idea of toys from trash and scientific so a lot of videos are available, lot of books are available, lot of scientific experiments are available, in which you can develop toys from trash, and obviously toys will also ensure that children are participating in it with playfulness, and they are learning scientific uh, concepts while playing, and that is how this can build new kind of ideas. And similarly, mathematical concepts are also explained with ease and with certain amount of playfulness aspect introduced. So that is the first thing and tool I will like to introduce you to. The second very useful tool for teacher leaders, and that is also useful to the students at a later stage, probably at the 6 to 8 years of age, is the Google G Suite for education, and that is very useful for start utilizing that as a writing platform for creating content, recording, and lot of other kinds of content can be created, and lot of other kind of options are available. So Google's G Suite for education provides you with a host of opportunities, so that can also be learned by the education leaders as well as teacher leaders. So that is another platform and another tool for learning that is very useful. Then there are a lot of channels on YouTube related to education. Say for example, Choo Choo TV, Infobells. Why I have quoted Choo Choo TV? Because if you are going to learn English language, this is a very important and useful rhyming as well as storytelling platform, and very important one, because the way it presents those rhymes and stories etc. is very engaging for children, and that can be useful. Infobells, why? Because if you are going to learn the Indian languages, this is a very important platform through which Indian language rhymes in Hindi and several South Indian languages, etc., are available, and that can be utilized to teach your children and educate your children with regards to the Hindi language. So, Chuchu TV for the English language and Infobells for the Hindi language can be quite useful. Then Wikipedia is a knowledge resource that can be utilized when children have become literate and they have got the ability to read and understand. Then they can start reading stuff and gathering information. So there is a information deluge on the web, and the information can be gathered according to interest. So that is why Wikipedia can serve as a very important resource. So these are only a curated set of resources. There can be other resources, and a whole list of curated sources can be gotten from me if desired. So for a complete curated set of contents for your child in the age group of 3 to 8 years, get in touch with me for that. So Ecovation is another social learning platform that has emerged in the Indian context, and that is quite useful, which connects the education stakeholders, and very importantly, every kind of educational. So it is a social learning platform that you must understand. It's quite useful. So that is why I have also mentioned it. And then augmented reality and virtual reality in education is another important idea that has come up, and that helps in so say for example, you would have seen the picture of animals in 3D. So that is the augmented reality thing that is available by Google, and by that children can experience the shape and size of animals if they have not seen animals in their home environment. So that is the important contribution by Google. So these are some of the things. So the AR and VR sets are available. So that can be bought by parents who who can invest some money, and then that is quite useful in experiencing a lot of industries and lot of geographical locations which cannot be visited at a very frugal uh, investment and very low cost. So this is a very important, but its utilization should be thought of in a very uh, crude manner, and it should be thought of that it should be utilized carefully, and it should not be utilized too much every day, so that it does not harm the children mentally and physically, and their eyes and ears are protected. So those are the things you need to take care of. So educational technology trends and the foundational education. First is social learning platforms ensure that there is possibility of collaborative learning, because these platforms provide opportunity for peer learning, discussion forums and all that. So a lot of important learnings takes place. Then another idea is learning outside the classroom environment through various kinds of ebooks, Wikipedias, and all that. So there are a lot of ebooks available on the web. There is also this Kindle available, and lot of other ebook platforms and ebooks available, so that can be utilized. The use of social media and learning is a very important tool, but social media needs to be used with a lot of caution, because a lot of floating material which is not curated and which is not useful and which is at times harming is also available on the social media. So that is why it needs to be utilized with a lot of caution. So social media platforms of reputed news agencies and reputed uh, websites should only be utilized. So interactivity in classroom, flipped classrooms are another technology that is in you. Then lot of data management and analytics nowadays is available when a child is using a certain technology and a technological gadget. A lot of data analytics for that is available, and that tells you how you are performing. So that is another way of looking at your performance, and that helps you in improving your quality and your performance in general. Immersive learning with AR and VR is that is augmented reality and virtual reality is another important thing. Gamification in education and harnessing playfulness is another important aspect, wherein you start utilizing and combining various kinds of intelligences and various kinds of pedagogies to harness the intelligence of children, and harness the playfulness aspect of children to teach them and make them learn new ideas and connect ideas, and coming to this whole idea of neurons that fire together wire together, fire together kind of a idea. So that helps in wiring of neurons together and they're firing together. And finally, there is a word of caution that there is a lot of online data that goes out because of that, and cyber security issues are there. So one needs to take care of that. So with that, we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you. In the next lecture, we will be designing a blueprint for foundational education stage. And we now in this lecture we understood about the technological aspect, and we have already we are coming to the fag end of the whole online training program on foundational education leadership. We have understood what educational leadership is, what are the how the education cycle looks like, what are the objectives of the foundational education stage, and what are the pedagogical, technological, and curricular aspects of that is the whole TPAC of foundational education stage. Now in the next lecture we will summarize all that and give a guideline to designing a blueprint for the foundational education stage. And with that, we will come to the end of the whole training program. And after that, we will have a online discussion forum, maybe at the end of the month on the fourth Saturday. So with all this, I would also suggest to go through the readings that are prescribed. Thank you.